Welcome back to the Sully Scoop, where three lifelong Husker bros dive in depth on all surrounding the new era of Husker football, where our cups never run dry of the Rule-Aid under head coach Matt Rule, made by fans for fans with BSul, BSul, and TSul. The Sully Scoop is the official Nebraska Cornhusker football podcast brought to you by Big Banter.
And welcome back to another episode of your favorite Cornhusker podcast, the Sully Scoop. This week, you're on with your two favorite hosts of the Sully Scoop panel, TSul and BSul. And let me tell you, that Husker performance on Saturday against Maryland sent BSul to an early grave, and that's why it's just the two of us this week. TSul, I got to get your opinion. What was your biggest takeaway from this Maryland game?
My biggest takeaway from the Maryland game there, BSul, is I'm pissed off. And I'm pissed off that I wasted $5.99 to watch the Huskers blow another game and play absolutely like crap. And that's ultimately what I'm going to put it at. I'm pissed off that I wasted money, and I think the Nebraska University should reimburse me for that Peacock money.
Yeah, I think there's a handful of takeaways you can take from this game, TSul. Your $6 isn't one of them. I got to tell
For
you,
me, it is.
It is what it is on that aspect of it. But I got to tell you, my biggest takeaway is the entire game. I shouldn't say the entire game. It did feel like most of the game, though. I felt like the guy from the Water Boy in the stands, Rob Schneider, where he goes, "Oh no, we suck again." That's how it felt watching this game. That's exactly how this game felt. Didn't matter who was in at quarterback. Harburg looked terrible. Sims, even worse. And then you bring Purdy in and you run the freaking ball. Emmett Johnson looks like a man among boys. And what do? You get down to the red zone and you throw the ball. I think the biggest issue here coming out of this game is that Sat still has a job.
Well, BSul, I got to say, I'm not surprised that Sat still has a job. I hate him just as much as the next guy. But ultimately, when the fans are calling for a coach to get fired, especially in a first year of Matt Rule's new tenure, if he fired Sat right now, and the fans would be happy, but then all of a sudden I'd think about it for a second and be like, wait a second, that's not good. That means now he's starting to question his decisions. He's starting to question his coaches. He's starting to fold to the media, and you can't have that, especially not in Lincoln. The media, the fans aren't going anywhere, so you better get used to it. You know, you're not going to play a great game every week. Everybody knows that. So I like that he stuck with his guns. He put his foot down. You know, he put his foot in the sand and said, no, he's not going anywhere. We're finishing the season. He's going to be back next year because we're building something. This is year one, folks.
I get it. Yeah, but I get that we're building something. Mississippi State just pulled the plug on a coach who's 9 games into his career as a head coach there. So what's the difference?
State. We're not Mississippi State.
So I get that. But all I'm saying is Satterfield is not the right guy to be the offensive coordinator in the Big Ten. Listen, you watch back some of these plays and there are guys open. But I got to think he is not telling these kids to read the defense. Otherwise, there would be a hell of a lot less turnovers. You look at his last 3 seasons as an offensive coordinator, his offenses have been bottom 5 in total giveaways. And I got to tell you something, TSul, for everybody to say, well, Nebraska doesn't have a real quarterback. Doesn't matter. South Carolina had Spencer Rattler, a guy that BSul was on here saying, we want Spencer. Come to Lincoln. And listen, if Spencer Rattler had come last year instead of Casey Thompson, maybe we'd be having a different conversation. Maybe Spencer Rattler wouldn't have been bottom 5 in total giveaways in South Carolina last year. Maybe he could have been a Heisman winner with Scott Frost as his head coach. You never know. The world is full of what ifs. But I got to tell you something. Satterfield needs to go.
Well, BSul, I think we all know that Rattler wasn't going to be any better under Scott Frost. We didn't have a quarterback succeed under Scott Frost, especially in the turnover category. You could say that Martinez put up the stats, but in the turnovers, they were always to the other team. So I think Rattler would have came in and done what Rattler does, turn the ball over. And that's what our quarterbacks are doing this season, and it's ridiculous. And to your point, here's the change I'm making this next week against Wisconsin. I ain't playing Harburg. The guy is horrible. The guy can't throw the ball. If he wants to come in the game as a running back or maybe like a jet screen and I, hand it off to him or something, hey, I'm all for that. He's an athlete, but he is not my starting quarterback for the rest of the season. I don't care. If he was going to be my starting quarterback, he wouldn't need to finish off Michigan State. And then at that point, we made a bowl game with the guy, so I'm riding or dying with him till the end of the season. But the way that I see it, if he's our starting quarterback against Wisconsin, against Iowa, we're ending the season with 5 wins. It's already done. We're not going to a bowl game if our best offense is through Harburg.
See, I agree with you on that aspect. I don't think Harburg's the answer at quarterback. I don't think any of these guys is the answer at quarterback. I think this quarterback room is atrocious. Listen, you could look at every other quarterback room in the Big Ten, and I would take it over ours. That's how bad this team is. The guys have no care for the football. They don't care if they turn it over because there's no repercussions. Listen, you throw an interception in the game, 100 up downs right now on the field. I don't even care. We're taking a delay a game. We're taking 12 men on the field. I'll take the penalty for that. I want 100 up downs on the field. I want you to be embarrassed at Memorial Stadium. Camp Randall, do it out there. Do it everywhere. And the reason, TSul, that Satterfield is not going anywhere has nothing to do with Matt Rule is building something. Matt Rule knows who he is. He knows what he is. Satterfield has been around with him since the beginning. He was at Temple. He was at Baylor. Hell, he was even at the Panthers before he left Carolina to go to South Carolina. Listen, this guy is somebody who Matt Rule is comfortable with. He knows he's going to do what he wants. And I get that. To some degree, that's what you need. However, when a guy doesn't know how to coach, you got to pull the plug and you got to get rid of him. This is Tim Beck 2.0. Pull the plug, get him out.
I disagree with you there, BSul.
Get him out.
I disagree 100%. Because here's what I'm going to tell you. These guys are wide open on these plays. If we just throw it to the correct guy, we're winning all of these games.
Why are you throwing the ball? We are on our 4th string running back, and I got to tell you something. The kid looks like he can carry the load. Give him the ball.
Well, BSul, that's short-sighted thinking. And
Give him the ball.
I'm a big-sided thinking kind of guy. If you want to win the West, we would have already won the West. We would have ran it on every play, not thought about the future. We would have won the West.
That's all I want. I want to win the West.
Not me. Not Big Dog. I was talking to Big Dog, and I'm 100% on his page with this one. It's not. Listen here, Scoopers. It's not about winning the West this year. It's about setting yourself up to win national championships. It has nothing to do with the Big Ten. Has nothing to do with the Big Ten West. Has nothing to do with the new opponents you got coming in. It's all about winning championships. If you're going to compete for championships, you're going to come out of the Big Ten. Ain't that strong? It's simple as that. You got tough teams in the Big Ten. You don't have that many elite teams. And, Michigan's digging their own grave, and so is Ohio State. So it's going to be up for grabs in 2 years, and that's what Matt Rule is going for. And with Satterfield, if he gave up on passing altogether, which is clear as day that anybody with a brain would do this year if the goal was to win the Big Ten West. But if you do that, you then lose everything you were building for the next couple of years because now these players don't know the offense that you plan to run down the road. And so next year's going to be just as bad offensively as this year until people start stacking the box, and then you got nothing. So it comes down to you run the plays that you're going to run. You point to your recruits and the transfer quarterbacks and say, look, this guy sucks. He drops the ball or he throws it to this guy, and this guy's wide open every time. There's somebody open in every single play, and we're throwing it to the wrong guy. That tells me if I tell a random quarterback in the portal, hey, you see this? There's a job for you here because these guys aren't good enough to be where Nebraska needs to be.
Now, T, I'm gonna ask you a quick question here. Because first off, I don't think there's any way that Big Dog went out here and said, we don't want to win games this year. We're looking for losses to win for the future. Absolutely not. That's a ridiculous take. Absolutely, you should run the ball and win the West this year. I get what you're saying, but you just backlogged and went against your take. You said you are running these plays. Yes, absolutely. You said you are running these plays so that your team that you have now collectively understands the offense to be more successful next year. Correct?
Correct.
That's what you
Correct.
said. So how is running these plays with a quarterback who doesn't know how to take care of the ball, throw the ball, do any of that, going to help you next year when you're bringing in a brand new quarterback who has to learn the whole system again?
Because
That
it's
right
not
there
just
is
a
growing
quarterback.
pains. It
It's
is
not just a
rotating.
quarterback.
It
The
is-
running backs
you
are in every
doing
play.
The same thing.
The wide receivers are in every play. The
The-
tight ends, the offensive line, the defense.
So
I mean,
so let me get this straight. Going into next season, you are telling me Emmett Johnson is your number one running back,
he might be.
and he is gonna leapfrog two guys on the depth chart.
Two guys who are injury prone.
That's fine. I'd like you to lock it in. So Emmett Johnson is gaining confidence here by us saying, sorry, Emmett, we don't trust you to carry the ball 100 times. Well, we kind of do, but we prefer to give looks to these freshman wide receivers who don't understand the route tree. That interception Purdy threw, first off, he didn't read the play. That's part one. That's an issue. Second, he threw to a spot that wasn't open because Malachi Coleman didn't run the right route. That is an issue. They gave Purdy a 50-50 ball. Matt Rule came out and said 50-50. It's a 2-in. Third guy goes to the corner. It's to the corner. It's either a touchdown or incomplete every time. Do you want to know why it was a pick? Because Malachi Coleman ran up, initiated contact, and then tried to break in. If you know your route is in to draw the corner out of there, you break in on your first step. You don't run up the field 3 yards.
Well, breaking news to Purdy, and he can have a conversation with his brother on the phone who will tell him, if you plan on going to the NFL at all, nothing is going to be the way it's drawn up on paper. You got to hit the guy who's open because anything can happen on any play. If the corner just falls down, but your number one read is, the tight end on the seam route, you better hit the guy where the corner fell down. If the safety shades in and you're running an out route but that's your third read, you better hit the third read as your number one because of what just happened on the field. And so he actually should have threw that ball to Malachi Coleman and would have been a touchdown because that who was it? The corner was shading on the other guy because he saw him coming in. If he throws the ball to Coleman, Coleman's in the end zone. So that's on Purdy. And he's got to understand that. Like, just because this is your number one read doesn't mean you only look at the number one read.
But that is where I'm saying the issue is. I don't think they are giving these kids the opportunity to read the defense. I believe the play comes in and it is, you are going to this spot. And the reason I think that, the Purdy interception is only one of the reasons. When you look at that Jeff Sims interception, where he overthrows Billy Kemp, granted it's an overthrow, where he throws it to Billy Kemp into triple coverage. Jalen Lloyd breaks to the inside on a post, and you throw it to the guy running an out route where Jalen Lloyd's guy stayed. They were running zone defense there, shaded to Billy Kemp, and they left Jalen Lloyd wide open. And it's not like he couldn't see it. If he's looking to the left where they are at, you see them cross, you see both receivers right there, and you threw to Billy Kemp. Because why? Because I guarantee you the play was drawn up, Billy's going to be open, get the ball to Billy. It was an overthrow. That is why it was picked. But I am telling you, Jalen Lloyd was wide open. There wasn't a guy 10 yards near him, and with his speed, he would have scored. The issue there absolutely is on Satterfield and the coaching.
Maybe so there, BSul, but I mean, let's just think about the facts here, okay? We don't have that great of an offensive line. We simply don't. So you don't have time to go through all your reads. So maybe at that point in the game, we were getting hit because we were getting hit a lot out there from the Maryland guys. They said, throw it to the number one read, and that's it. You don't even have time to look for a number two read because our offensive line is horrible. And so that's also the same thing moving forward. Is like, you'll be able to go all the way down the list if they fix the offensive line like the plan is.
Yeah, I think there's two things here on the offensive line play. First off, I think the only guy who has played consistent all season has been Ben Scott. And that's why he's an award finalist at this point in the season. now or on the watch list. The other side here, TSul, is let's give them some credit. Raiola has put these guys, because when is the last time that you looked at the field and you said, oh my God, Benhart sucks?
A lot. I said it a lot this past game.
Benhart didn't do a lot
This
bad this
offensive
last
line
game.
whipped on blocks all over the place. Let's look at the stats.
Teddy
How many sacks did Maryland get this game? How many knockdowns did they get? How many hitting the running back in the backfield did they get? A lot. Because our offensive line is not good. They're not horrible, like the last couple of years. They're not good by any standards, No,
I'm not saying that they're very good, but all I'm telling you is this offensive line has taken a step forward the last couple of weeks.
Okay, I can agree with you there. They took a step forward from where they were, but we're still in the mud. We're still waist deep in the mud, if anything.
Yeah, we're waist deep because we're throwing the ball with guys who don't know how to take care of the ball and don't know how to throw a freaking pass. This is Tim Beck throwing the ball with Taylor Martinez. This is all it is again.
Well, here's my thing against Wisconsin. If I'm the coaches, I'm starting Purdy because Jeff Sims got plenty of starts. Harburg got plenty of starts. It's time to play the younger guy. It's time to play Purdy. Wisconsin ain't that good. So, I mean, looking at the stats, you can lean on Everett Johnson. He had 17 carries, 84 yards. As BSul said, we got to give him the ball more if winning the West or, making a bowl game is super important, which it is, but winning a national championship is more important than that. So you got to set your team up to succeed for next year and the year after as well. And we got to run more quarterback runs. I mean, Harburg, he had 2 carries for 0 yards. If this guy is a running threat quarterback, what the hell is that?
Yeah, I think to start with, when you look at this team, if your goal is to set it up for success for the future and everything, you would not be playing these seniors. These seniors aren't going to help these freshmen get game time looks. You're in the final 3 games of the season where you can utilize these freshmen who haven't played so that they can still redshirt for the year and you can see what you have. If that was your goal, was to punt the rest of the season and just see what you have and build for the future, they'd be doing it. That isn't their goal. Their goal has been all season to make it to Indy for a Big Ten championship game appearance, because at this point, you don't have a prayer shot next year when the Big Ten changes away from divisions. And so that's always been the goal. So now, after fumbling 2 very good opportunities these last 2 weeks, you now have to hope that Iowa loses out is what you need to happen.
It's very possible Iowa could lose out there. I mean,
I'm not saying it's
Iowa's not that
We're
strong.
One of their games. You need Iowa to lose to us and to lose to Illinois. And I haven't been impressed by your potential Big Ten West champion there, TSul.
You must not have watched the Minnesota tape with those guys. And speaking of which, BSul, do you still think that it's not going to happen that PJ Fleck is going to get fired? Because I've been reading reports all week where people are calling for his head in Minneapolis. So what do you say about that, BSul? He's very quiet over there because he knows that one's about to cash and that one's about to cash big time.
Yeah, T, I do think it's a possibility that PJ gets fired. However, it also wouldn't surprise me if Minnesota decides, hey, listen, when's the last time we were relevant? This guy's had us at 9 wins a season. They don't want to cut off their nose to spite their face because they're not a football school, so they'll deal with it. Also, if you're trying to see that your hot take's going to cash here, you need him to get fired before the end of the season. And so you got 2 weeks here. And let's be real. I don't know that that's going to happen.
Well, BSul, if you remember correctly, we said that the end of the season is after the national championship game, but I never specified.
That's not what we said. Not what we said.
No. I never specified if it was Minnesota's football season or the Sully Scoop
You
season. And the
said
Sully Scoop
no.
season lasts all the way until
Mm-mm.
April there,
No,
folks. So
that's
we
cap.
got a couple of months for, PJ Fleck to tread water. And I think I'll outlast him.
Yeah, that's not what was agreed upon, nor that's not what was said. Your hot take was they would lose to Northwestern, and it would cost him his job before the season ended. And Minnesota's season is going to end short this year.
You're right. It is going to end short because they're not going to make a bowl game. And that is going to light a lot of people's hair on fire in Minneapolis.
I don't know that it's going to light a lot of hairs on fire. There's not enough people who care about Minnesota football.
Well, they're definitely going to get smoked by Ohio State this week. I mean, you don't even have to talk about that one. And then they got to finish the season against Wisconsin. And Nebraska will do me a lot of favors if they go out and beat Wisconsin this week, because then that means next week Wisconsin's got a lot to play for with Minnesota, and they'll be playing to see loser goes to a bowl game or winner goes to a bowl game and losers out. And I think at that point, I think Fickle might be riding a little hot because he's inheriting a team that hasn't missed a bowl game in a long time. And if he costs Wisconsin a bowl game in his first season, people are going to start questioning him.
Absolutely, I think they will. Now, looking ahead to this Nebraska-Wisconsin matchup here, T, I got to ask you, this matchup predictor, where they're giving Wisconsin a 70% chance to win the game. Wisconsin's got a 5-point edge in the spread right now. That's a joke. This is the same team that was they've been atrocious as of late.
Yeah, BSul, I'm shocked by that too, but I get giving Wisconsin the edge, but I'm not going to give them a 70 to 30%, 70 against Nebraska's 30 edge, because that's ridiculous in my head. I mean, Wisconsin is not that good of a team. They're not good at all, actually. They're just as bad as we are. We lost Michigan State. They lost to Indiana. Who did they lose to this week? They lost Northwestern. We lost to Maryland. So Northwestern we beat. You could argue that Wisconsin beat Maryland, but it's a pointless argument because they've been losing to teams worse. So the point being is this: I would give Wisconsin the edge because they've owned us. I mean, we haven't beat them since 2012. So I would give them the edge just because the history is against us. But Nebraska might be due, and this is the year to take advantage and swing the pendulum back in our favor and hold on to it for who knows how long, because you got to take care of business. I mean, this might be the worst Wisconsin team we've ever seen. And, we've been worse than what we are. And, Wisconsin had to walk it off in overtime or on, a last second field goal the last couple of years. We've been playing close games with them. We're better than what we've been, and they're worse than what they've been. So do the math yourself. Nebraska's got to come out and win this game.
Absolutely. And listen, like I said, Nebraska's got to come out and win this game for a ton of reasons. If this team comes out and finishes the season on a 4-game losing streak, that your last win was a dominating effort against Purdue at home. You got embarrassed by Michigan State, embarrassed by Maryland. That if you lose to Wisconsin and you lose again to Iowa, you are basically saying, listen, we didn't get any better than we were the year before. That is the same fashion that this team would have lost games under Scott Frost. And so you really need to win this game to start changing the narrative of this Nebraska football team. If Matt Rule wants to say, hey, listen, it's year one, you got to give us time to build it. No, at this point, you've gotten to 5 wins. You've lost to 4 teams that you shouldn't have. And you now need to win out to say, listen, there's progress throughout the year. You started 0-2 against 2 teams that you should have beaten. Then you beat 2 teams that you should have. So you're at 2-2. You get embarrassed by Michigan. And then you go on a little bit of a roll. To fall off the wagon here, if you lose out, Matt Rule's got a lot of explaining to do, and I think he'll feel the tension and the hot seat very soon.
Well, BSul, I'm definitely with you. We definitely need to make a bowl game to give me any confidence moving forward. I told you I only dipped my toe in, so you're really feeling it because you dove in there head first without realizing there was a sheet of ice on the top. So you might have a concussion or something. You got to check yourself out with the doctor. I mean, like the rest of us, I've been riding the highest of the highs and the lowest of the lows. After that 3-game win streak, I didn't think we were losing another game on the season. And now that we lost to Michigan State and Maryland, I don't think we're going to win again this year. We're right back to where we were, highest of the highs, lowest of the lows. We go out there, beat Wisconsin, take care of business. Look, TSul doesn't care what happens against Iowa if we beat Wisconsin. I don't care what happens against Iowa. Iowa's showing they're the best in the West this year. Let them go get embarrassed by Michigan. Let's take care of business against Wisconsin, get the extra practices in, and go smoke whoever we play in the bowl game. You get it all together there. You let the people who don't want to be on the team leave, early for the draft or whatever they want to do. Probably not the draft. They just walk away from football at that point. So that's what I tell you. Let's go out there. Let's beat Wisconsin, take care of business, not sweat it out until the very end against Iowa. Who cares about that game at this point? They're going to be in the championship game. We're not going to be. And then let's win our bowl game is what it comes down to for me.
Yeah, I think at this point, I think we need to win out for Matt Rule to feel confident going into next season. And
for Matt Rule to feel confident, or for you, BSul, to feel confident?
I'll feel confident either way. Listen, this team is building for the future. Matt Rule's a good coach. He's a good
So if Nebraska
builder.
loses out, you're going to feel confident into next year.
After we win the offseason again, absolutely. I'll be confident come September. The other thing that does make me feel good about where this program is going to, and just it's the athletic department as a whole, is Trev Alberts getting that 8-year extension on his deal to remain our AD. Trev has done a lot for the university since coming in and taking over for Bill Moose. And I got to tell you something, T. I was high on Moose when he took over. Moose did a lot of good, don't get me wrong. But Trev, to me, has an opportunity here as the athletic director to build a university athletic department up and restore it back to its premier goal, back to its premier glory days in the football program, to continue the historic success of the volleyball team, to get the basketball team to a level where they can compete in the Big Ten. And I think Trev is on the right path here. And that's why I'm not surprised the university gave him that extension. And it does make me ecstatic to be a Nebraska fan.
I'm there with you, BSul. I think Trev's been doing everything right. He clearly cares about the university, and he's pushing everything to the forefront. And just think about that volleyball matchup in Memorial Stadium. I mean, that tells you everything you need to know about how good of an AD that Trev Albert is, because, he set that up with the coaches of the volleyball and the team of the volleyball. Somebody had a good idea, and instead of shooting it down, they made it happen. And they made it happen. It became history all over. And Nebraska's on the front page everywhere. The volleyball team is undefeated, which is unreal. I mean, they're ridiculously good. Undefeated. I mean, we might have to start talking about Nebraska volleyball over football, because they actually show up and compete and actually want to be out there and win. And sometimes I question that with our football team. But Matt Rule's been doing a good job. Not a great job. We're not there yet. He's been doing a good job, though. I mean, after we started out 2-3, I looked at that 4-game stretch of winnable games and said, best case is 2-2. And we ended up going 3-1. So losing to Michigan State was almost bound to happen. And looking at those final 3 games, I looked at it and said, best case for us is 1-2 after the Michigan game. And, we're 0-1. We lost to Maryland. That was probably the game I picked as a W. At the beginning of the season, I picked it as an L because I thought Maryland was going to be better than they are, which they're not. But point being is this. I looked at Wisconsin and Iowa and said, no way. And here we are with a chance against Wisconsin and Iowa. And I picked it 1-3. I shot under before. Hopefully I shot under again, and we do win out. And And if we went out and, as BSul said, Iowa loses to Illinois, we go to Indy instead of them. If they beat Illinois, they might look at our game as just bragging rights, nothing more than that. And so that could be another good opportunity for our team just go in and take care of business.
And that's the thing. I think there's going to be a lot riding on these next 2 games for Iowa. That it's not going to surprise me if they fold, especially with the rumor being that their top DB Cooper DeJean isn't going to play the next 2 weeks, that he's done for the season. Now, neither Illinois nor Nebraska are big passing teams. They like to be, they're not. So I think it's going to come down to it. But Illinois, if Iowa this week is without their top DB, watching what Illinois' quarterback did against Indiana last week, Paddock had a heck of a season in his first start there. And so could you see magic in a bottle twice there? Could Paddock be the guy to take over and really make a run for Illinois and put Iowa basically at the point where last year we got to play spoiler against Iowa? We kept them out of Indy. That can Illinois play spoiler to make them have to go to a must-win game to get back to Indy against Nebraska where they choked last year?
I definitely think so, BSul. And that's because, Illinois has a lot to play for against Iowa because they got 2 tough games in the season. They have to play at Iowa, and then they got Northwestern coming into town. And frankly, Northwestern looks like one of the best teams in the West right now. I might even put them over Iowa at this point. Northwestern is definitely not a gimme game for Illinois, so they know they got to take care of business, so they're going to sweat it out against Northwestern to make a bowl game. And frankly, Brett doesn't want to not he doesn't want to miss a bowl game for Illinois because that's when people start questioning if they made the right decision in bringing him in. And personally, for me, if Illinois ever gets to 6 wins or more, and I know that they were last year, I think an 8-win squad, why would you ever think about firing your coach? Illinois is a program where if you succeed, the entire conference looks bad. Purdue's in the same category. Indiana's in the same category. If they look good, the entire conference looks bad.
I would have to agree with you on that sentiment there. When you've been the bottom of the barrel for so long, if you start winning, everybody's going to question the strength of the conference.
That's exactly right. Until you start winning some big games. And Illinois hasn't won anything recently. They made a Rose Bowl back in 2005. It got smoked by USC. So doesn't even count that they went there, So I think Iowa has a great shot at beating Illinois, obviously, and going to the West, but it's definitely not out of the realm. I would have thought at this point in time, it was going to be a 4-man race between Nebraska, Wisconsin, Iowa, and Minnesota. We were all going to have to play it out at the end, but now we're in this predicament where, what are we? 5 out of the 7 teams have the same conference record, and we're all sitting at 5-5. So everyone wants to make a bowl game. So, and we all play each other these final 2 weeks. That's what it's going to come down to.
No, and that's exactly it. And I think even if Iowa happens to lock up the Big Ten West this week against Illinois, let's say Illinois doesn't show up, Iowa wins 10-3 or 10-9, whatever it ends up being, and they beat Illinois, they are still going to suit up and try to give Nebraska their best. That there's no lock for Nebraska to make a bowl here. We have to win out to get to Indy. We have to win out, in my opinion, to feel confident to end the season here. Because Iowa's going to suit up after we kept them out of Indy last year. If we lose to Wisconsin, Iowa's going to say, we can keep those kids home. We can stop them from having a bowl game. And I bet you they all suit up for that game.
Oh, I don't think that you're wrong. That's a really strong budding rivalry. When I say they're playing for bragging rights mean everything in this rivalry. A lot of people live over the border and are fans of either team. Omaha kind of runs into Iowa. So a lot of people are very familiar with each other and they see each other all the time. And so bragging rights, but specifically for the fans, is a ton. But I want to jump this back to this Wisconsin matchup we got coming up. I don't know what to expect in this game. I just know our offense is going to turn it over several times. I think Wisconsin's going to turn it over several times because they don't look that great either. I think this is going to be an ugly game, B. So I'm expecting 8 turnovers minimum for the both of us.
Yeah, I don't think 8 combined turnovers is going to happen in back-to-back weeks again. I'm just hoping if Quentin's back this week, I think that's going to stop the big playability on the outside. I think Quentin being out last week is part of the reason that Maryland was able to get a couple deep shots off. And listen, neither one of these teams is scoring at a prolific level. I think Braylon Allen is still a very talented back, but is he going to be 100% healthy after he was knocked out last week? This Nebraska defense is going to have to play stout. They're going to have to try their best to not get bullied by this Wisconsin offensive line. And the defense is going to have to create takeaways against Mordecai. Tanner Mordecai, is not the most accurate passer, but he also isn't the, most turnover prone. I feel like Nebraska's got 3 very turnover prone quarterbacks, and it worries me because there is a part of me that thinks we're going to see an awful lot of Chubba this week, and I don't think that bodes well for success.
So you think an awful lot of Harburg bodes well for success?
I mean, Harburg's won 5 games. He's also lost 2.
Yeah, well, I'm putting those last 2 losses strictly on him.
It's hard to put all of the Maryland loss on him.
Oh, but it is because if
So-
you recall our first drive, he threw a pick, got bailed out by a penalty. The team went for it on 4th down, picked it up, which was an amazing call, and then he throws a pick to midfield again. I mean, what is the guy doing out there?
So again, T, with him not playing the whole game, I'm not saying it would have been a different outcome. I'm just telling you, I don't think you can put the entire Maryland loss on Harburg. I'm putting Michigan on him, and I'm putting Michigan State on him. The Maryland, I think, was a combined effort, and I think, honestly, Jeff played more snaps, and I think Jeff is the reason we lost that game.
Well, Jeff hasn't won a game. So me personally, I'm not.
That's my point. 0-3.
Right. Yeah. And those games the team should have won. So
Yep.
That's why I'm starting Purdy out there. And I think he'll put us in a position to succeed and win.
I think Harburg would put you in a position where you can win the game too.
Maybe if he's taking a knee and we're punting because the guy throws an interception every other drive.
He's not quite that excessive at it, but yes, there are a lot of turnovers. He fumbles more than he throws interceptions.
The point being is this: I'm more confident if we just take a knee and punt the ball and play the field position game versus going for it all, throwing a pick or fumbling, because that gives them way too much momentum.
Hey, Brian, we want to score more than 22 points.
Maybe we need to bring him in because he knows how to win these types of games. He's like, hey, I've been dealing with it for however long. People are blaming me, the offensive coordinator, but the talent level sucks.
Absolutely not. Absolutely not, TSul. We are not bringing a ferrets into this program.
Could you go out there and succeed with Iowa's offense?
Yes.
And actually score points is what I mean.
Yes.
Iowa has been succeeding with their bad offense.
Yeah. And I would score more points than Brian Ferentz's offensive average.
So you'd score a touchdown and then miss the extra point?
All I got to do is lock down 12 points a game, T, and I think I could do that with that Iowa offense.
Fair enough. But, looking at this Wisconsin game, not a lot of confidence coming from the Nebraska side. I know there's not a lot of confidence coming from the Wisconsin side. So this is going to be an interesting game. It's going to be one that you're not going to want to miss. It's a night game in Madison. The energy is going to be there, and it'll be fun. And hopefully Nebraska can get out of Madison with a win finally. Because we've never won in Madison.
That's exactly it. I think that would be the biggest win of the season for Matt Rule's team. If the Huskers come out and they can win in Camp Randall, that is a true away game, that is a hostile environment, and it's a night game.
And I mean, we have to go back 3 coaches before you find one that actually beat Wisconsin. So that's something to be said too. Riley couldn't do it. Scott Frost couldn't do it. Mickey Joseph couldn't do it.
And that's exactly it. And when you look at it too, yeah, Bo Pelini's the last coach that beat Wisconsin, but he beat him on his home turf and then got embarrassed by him in what, 3 weeks,
Barely,
4
too.
weeks later?
They had to mount a big comeback in the 4th quarter, 18-point comeback. So
Yep.
they barely got away with that win against Wisconsin.
Yeah. But you also had a quarterback who was a game changer back then.
And you had stud running backs.
Absolutely.
I mean,
that team in 2012 was stacked.
Yeah. And then they got out-coached in the championship is what it comes down to. Because that team, they were way better than getting run off the field by 40 points. So you got out-coached in the championship game, and it showed.
Yeah. And I think that's what Nebraska football is missing, honestly. When you look back at some of these teams, and again, I'm not gonna pick on a Mike Riley team because there were a lot of good guys out there that were on the team, but you didn't have any of those dogs there. And I mean, even Scott Frost brought in some talented guys, but you didn't have anybody who was like nobody wanted to fight with. You didn't have that guy who kept the team in line. When you go back to some of those Bo Pelini teams, I mean, come on. Defensively, whether it was linebacker, safety, D lineman, you had these guys that were dogs that nobody wanted to fight. Corners is another example that it was like they went out there and they were like, I'm better than you. I'm going to take it. I'm going to do this. Did we lose some games? Absolutely. But that never wavered their confidence. That never, made the guys question themselves. And we don't have anybody on the team really that feels that way. I think the only guy who maybe is walking around with that swagger is Tommy Hill, but Tommy Hill gets beat like every other play too. So, the side of it is Tommy Hill is probably the closest to that dog on defense, but he needs a lot of help out there because the safeties are out of position. The defense isn't really playing to his strength. And we need some guys out there who want to win, who want it to be their team and want to take advantage of it.
Well, you're forgetting one guy in the past 10 years who was a dog. That was last year with Trey Palmer. That guy was a freaking monster.
That's a good comparison there. But, Trey Palmer was when he came in, but it was a guy who was part of the transfer portal. And that's the only transfer out of the transfer portal, honestly, that we've hit on. We've brought in some good guys, but he was a game changer.
Torrey we hit on.
Samori Torrey, yeah. He was a good player, but he wasn't a game changer. I'm talking Trey Palmer was a game changer. Levante David, when they got him out of JUCO, game changer.
Randy Gregory was a game changer.
Game changer. Right there. Those were guys that could take over the game and handle it. And you haven't had anybody like that. You don't have somebody on this team who they're like, we got to stay away from him.
Right. We don't.
You got a lot of good players, but I don't know that we've got anybody who I would say is a great. We don't have anybody who's going to do it. And, maybe some of these freshman kids are going to, take the steps and grow and stuff like that. And, I certainly hope they do. But I'm really hoping Matt Rule takes a look at the transfer portal this year and hits it hard. I mean, let's face it, T, I know this is going to get a lot of blowback, and I think it would be something that could be good. I mean, can we look at who did a lot of the recruiting back when Bo Pelini was the head coach? And can we bring some of these guys in as analysts or, just people who go out and do the recruiting side of it? I mean, we want some of those guys who got it. I don't care if you're a 2-star. If you got it and you're going to come in and you're going to grind every day and you're going to hit the weight room and be the best guy on the field, those are the guys we want. We want those guys who want to be here, want to win, and want to do it. We don't want these guys who are like, oh, man, I only played 3 games last year for the team, so I'm going to transfer out. We don't want the guys who want to play a certain position, and so when they get told they should play another one, they transfer out. and everybody knows who I'm throwing shade at since he's finally playing the position we told him to, and he's having success.
Yeah, but he just didn't like Scott Frost, and let's be honest, not a lot of people did. And here's what I'm going to tell you, BSul. I agree with you about this dog, and we need him out there to plug him in and out, but I think our defensive unit is better and stronger than Bo Pelini's defensive units.
No, they're not. No.
No, hold on.
Which Bo Pelini defensive unit are you saying this is better? Because if you're saying collectively as a whole, absolutely not.
Hold on, listen to this, BSul. Listen to this, okay? Those 2 years with Sue do not count because that guy was the best college football player we've ever seen. And if you plugged him in on this team, they would be shutting people out left and right too. And you know
absolutely. I agree with you.
But here's what I'm going to say. The difference between Nebraska's current defense and Bo Pelini's Bo Pelini's defense is at Nebraska, except for, say, the Ndamukong Suh position. Bo Pelini had a bunch of NFL players on his defense. I mean, ton of guys all over the field.
That's
safeties,
my point.
Corners.
He went out and he got the guys who wanted to work. He got the guys who wanted to play and wanted to do it. And that's what I'm saying we need. We need somebody to go in and say, where do you see yourself in 3 years?
That's the point, BSul, but you didn't let me finish, okay? How many NFL players do you think we have on our defense right now? Like legit,
maybe two.
We're talking
maybe
drafted
two.
only drafted. Because
I'm
all those guys we talked about with Bo Pelini got drafted. So
yeah,
if we're looking at that, this defense that we have this year is putting up stats like low numbers and stuff. And maybe that's something to be said about the weak offenses in the Big Ten versus the stronger offenses we saw in the Big 12. But the point being is this. If we can land 2 or 3 of those guys who have potential to be drafted on this defense, I mean, you're talking about being one of the top 3 defenses in all of college football with this system that we got. Because this system is incredible. I look across this defense and say, I don't think anybody's getting drafted. I mean, I'll be frank about it. I don't think any of these guys are getting drafted. Nash is the only one, but he needs more seasons under his belt to prove it. So if I plugged in like Alfonso Denard and Prince Amukamara on one side, I got Gomes back there and Will Compton. I mean, I got drafted guys all over the field. I don't see that with this defense. I truly don't. But they're playing great as a unit, and there's something to be said about that. And so if they start convincing better players to come in and play for this defense because they see how great it is, this defense that's great will become amazing. And now you'll get some actual ball hawks who go in there and some linebackers who just take people out and defensive linemen who just can't be stopped. That's where we're heading, and that's what we need to start hitting on. You know, we got some good guys. We got some guys that we don't know, like Cameron Lenhart. He's showing potential, but we don't know where that potential is. He hasn't played long enough. Same with Umanin. You know, we don't know where that potential is yet.
I do understand what you're saying, T, but what I'm trying to get across is I think there's a couple of guys on this defense that'll probably get a chance, whether that's drafted or undrafted free agent, any of that. I think there's a couple of guys on this team that probably will get that chance. And yes, 2 completely different defensive systems. I agree with you. And I really like what Tony White has done with this 3-3-5. All I'm saying is I don't look at this team and I don't see a guy on the roster who is that guy. On the offense, I don't see it. On the defense,
we don't have a
I don't see
Levante
it.
David. I agree. We don't have an endowment.
But that's my point.
We don't have a Jared Crick.
But even if you look at that, I mean, I'm going to give you a guy who I think was the hardest hitter. 2 of them. They both played safety under Bo Pelini. And, you know, I think they were 2 of the hardest hitters I ever saw. Only one made the NFL. And I got to tell you something. They made people pay for going across the field. Again, different time when before targeting became the biggest thing in the world and safeties really stopped hitting guys across the middle. But you had Damian Stafford, who had a short career in the NFL, but I think he got drafted. And if he wasn't drafted in the late rounds,
to the Titans. Yeah.
Yeah, I know he played for the Titans, but Damian Stafford was a huge hitter. And after Stafford left, you had Corey Cooper. And I think Corey Cooper was the hardest hitting safety I've ever seen. I mean, that guy was out there to make you pay for trying to pick up yardage against him. And who on this, and granted, we've got 5 DBs out here, who out there is making you pay for looking for yardage? All these guys are out there and they're letting you catch the ball and then hitting you. The only person out there who, from the safety position, seems to be making plays is Phelan Sanford. And I'm not taking anything away from him, but he's hitting people, but he's not hitting people.
Yeah. And I don't see linebackers handing out punishment. I don't see defensive linemen taking over games.
No, it's solid, like, form tackling. It is not a big hit. It is not making people regret coming to play you. This is, listen, very good defense. I'm not taking anything away from it. Not a black shirt defense.
That's the point, though. BSul, they're a great this season. They're a great unit out there, and they can be really great when they start hitting on the right recruits to come in and plug in these positions. Because right now we're a team of guys who've been here, who wanted to stay here, guys we've hit on the transfer portal, and a lot of freshmen. I mean, let's face it, we've seen a ton of freshmen out there plugging in and out. They're plugging all these guys in. All these guys know the system now. They're playing great together. They're communicating out there. That's something we haven't. Scott Frost's defense never communicated. They were all out there playing hero ball. Like, I'm counting out my sacks and my tackles. What are you doing over there? You know? Well, that guy just blew his That guy just blew his coverage because you were focused on the tackle for yourself, and now that guy's wide open for a touchdown because that quarterback actually wasn't going to run the ball.
And I agree with you. I think when you look at it for next year and you're looking at trying to get these guys in, they have to hit on the transfer portal a couple key positions. You need a very skilled wide receiver. Listen, love Billy Kemp, not the guy that we needed. We needed another, we needed a dog at wide receiver. Billy Kemp is a very solid receiver, and he deserves to be starting and out there for us. But he is not that guy. He did not come in and, immediately become our number one wide receiver and target. So you need a wide receiver, number one. Number two, you need a quarterback, because I don't think that Danny Kaelin is going to come in and immediately start. He probably becomes our best quarterback when he comes in, but you need to hit in the transfer portal on a QB. And after that, you need a linebacker. You need somebody who has experience and has played the game. I would almost prefer a grad transfer for a guy who's like kind of a fringe NFL player, but a guy who has consistency, hasn't missed a game, can really, give these young guys some direction and some help here. Because when you look at some of these recruits that we've got coming in, there's a handful here that I think can make an impact day one. I mean, let's start Carter Nelson, tight end from Ainsworth, Nebraska. Carter comes in instantly, number one, number two tight end, depending on how Fedoni finishes the year and if he stays healthy. After that, the next guy, Caleb Benning, he is a legacy at Nebraska here. He's going to come in. He plays safety. He's a guy who can hit. Then you've got Willis McGahee's kid coming in, linebacker. That right there, it's a guy with NFL blood in his talent. Knows he's got to come out, what it's going to take every day to produce. That is something that I love to see. And then another thing that I really like is Mario Buford. You have a kid coming in whose brother is on the team. Because of the age difference, they have never played together. And so this is an opportunity, because of COVID and because of Marquez's red shirt that he's getting this year for the medical reason, that you have an opportunity to put the two of them together on the field at the same time for 2 years. Marquez is going to start next year. Buford is a solid safety. And so if he comes in and he's starting and his brother knows, I got an opportunity to be out there with my big bro. I got an opportunity to show him. The two of them could feed off each other and really hone in that safety position and make that defense just so much better. And so I love to see, those are just a couple recruits that I love to see that I think really have an opportunity to make an impact next year early on.
Yeah, I'm with you there, BSul. And let's just see what happens, because we need to hit on a lot of these recruits, and we got to hit some diamonds in the rough, and we got to hit, and this defense will be great. We got to hit some offensive linemen. We got to hit a lot on the offense. Really, every position for me going into next year is wide open on offense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would agree with that. I think there's players who are going to start next year or be in the conversation to start that are on the team right now, but I don't think there's anybody that you lock in and you say, instant, there's no competition for them. I think everybody has an opportunity where they're still going to have to earn their spot next year on the offense.
I'm with you there, BSul. But you know what? Let's focus on the game at hand here. That's Wisconsin. And how do you think this game's going to turn out? I mean, I think there's going to be eight turnovers.
Yeah, I think it'll be a sloppy game too. I think both teams are in a need of getting something going right their way. And, just based on what I've seen this year, Wisconsin can't score the ball. Nebraska really can't either, but at least we can put together some drives and get down the field. I think our defense is going to remain stout. I think they're going to, put up a good fight against Braylon if he's healthy, or any other Wisconsin running back. I think Mordecai is an average quarterback for Wisconsin. I don't think he came in and is doing what they thought he was going to do. And so I'm going to take the Huskers to eke out a victory here. And honestly, I'm thinking this is going to be similar to that Iowa score. Maybe a little different, but I've got Nebraska winning the game 17-9.
Very interesting there, BSul. See, I'm playing a different game. I've been picking all these wins, been losing. So I actually have Wisconsin holding on to a win. I just think if you drop your game to Michigan State, you drop your game to Maryland, I don't think that you're going to be good enough to go in and beat the Badgers in Madison. So
but they just dropped the game to Indiana, and they dropped to Northwestern. What makes you think they're better than us?
Just from what I've seen for the last 5 years, it just tells me, like, I look at it, say we're way better than these guys, and yet we still dropped the game somehow. So I got Wisconsin coming out on top of this game 14-10. I think it's going to be very similar to Maryland. Can we eke out a victory? Sure, but I'm not going in here expecting it.
Yeah, I could definitely see it unfolding the same way that Maryland did, but I'd like to think that Nebraska's going to have to wake up. I think they're going to take more chances on offense, and I expect Nebraska to come out trying to score in the first half and actually do some damage early on.
I sure hope so, BSul. And I told you, man, if they come out here and beat Wisconsin, I mean, I'm right back into it, because I'm focused on bowl game or bust, bowl victory or bust is what I'm saying. If we make it to Indy, great, but we're not going to win in Indy. So I'm telling you, it's bowl game victory or bust in TSul's book. And no, 5-7, if you get an invite, doesn't count in my book.
Well, you got some fair points there, but thanks for joining us on another week of the Sully Scoop. You're here with BSul
and TSul.
And don't forget to follow us and listen anywhere you get your podcast to the Sully Scoop. Follow us on Twitter at Sully_Scoop, and mention us in a comment on Twitter, YouTube, Instagram, anywhere if you'd like to join the panel on a grandstand gossip.
Go Big Red.